So right now, we should have two tables in our BFM bank schema. Last class, we learned how to create a database, how to create a table using 3 different methods. We learned how to alter the tables, how to set constraints like primary and foreign keys. And then we populated our table using the insert, right? And then we also imported a whole CSV file. That's the transaction for our table. And then we started off with manipulating the data by learning the update function, how to correct an error that exists within your data. So today we'll jump to another function. Well, we used it yesterday, and it's the most common function you have in SQL. It's literally what you use to call or what you use to query any database, right? That's the select function. So the select function is the most commonly used SQL statement. That's how you start almost all your SQL coding, and it's how you start every query. So queries are instructions or statements that you write to fetch data from a database, right? And so when you're using SQL to write a query, select is the function that you begin with, right? So we learned yesterday how to get everything to see our table, right? So let me start from a new. This is clear. Okay. And so the syntax for your basic SQL query is select star from your table name, right? Now, this is your basic SQL query. However, so let's run it. So we see. So our table is accounts. So if we say select star from accounts and we run this, you see that I'm trying to want you to see the table properly. Okay, so when we run this, we see that we can see everything in our table. So the star here is like a wild card, right? That selects everything. Well, not necessarily a wild card, but it selects everything from the table. But this is not best practice. So even though you should know this, you should know that it is fundamental to know that your star in SQL selects every single thing, selects everything from the table. It is not best practice to write your queries using star, right? It's better if you want to write a standard query, you should list out the columns that you need from the query, right? So in this case, that would be select, say, account number, first name, last name, right? Balance, overdraft allowed, account status from account. So this is a better way to write this, even though it's longer and may look more stressful, but this is in terms of best practice in SQL, it is better to list your columns, right? When querying a table. So if I run this, I'll get exactly the same thing. I don't have to list all my columns, right? I can simply, if I don't need, let's say it's just the account number, first name, last name, and account status that I want. And so I can remove this. And if I run this query, I have just what I queried for, right? So select the basic query function, and then what we're selecting and the from, right? So SQL is almost like English. So it's just like you're saying, oh, I want account number, first name, last name, account status from table account, right? Okay. So that's straightforward enough. Now, the next thing we're going to learn is what you call aliases. So in SQL, there are times where you're going to be querying multiple tables in one script, in one query. And sometimes multiple tables may have the same name. For example, if I want to query from accounts and transactions, if you remember, our transactions also has a column called account number, right? There's something called aliases. We can give our table aliases, right? So if I say, select this from accounts, and I put here, say A or ACCT to shorten it. Or sometimes you can even have very long names as your table names. Your aliases can be a way to shorten it. It can be a way to make you call that table faster. So everywhere else on this query, if I do ACCT.table, so I'm saying that I'm getting, let me show you something even. So I'm saying select account number from accounts, and I've called the account ACCT, right? And so I can, if I come here now and say ACCT, which is my alias, and I put dots, it will give me a list of all the columns that I can find, and I can simply just select it here. So maybe first name, ACCT, dot, I want the last name, ACCT, I want the account status, right?
Question,
yeah.
For the alias to work, you need to run the transaction first?
No.
Okay, so the moment you put that alias at the end of the table name, it becomes effective? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Sorry. So how does the SQL know that thing is alias, since you're not doing anything special? So I can just type anything there and it will serve as the alias. Is that what it means?
Yes. So if I put this as A, then it does not recognize, if I run this now to tell me that ACCT is not, like, it does not recognize ACCT, right? So to throw me an error. So unknown, because ACCT. So if I change all here to A, then it runs because it recognizes accounts as A. So anything you put in front of the table name, it takes it as the alias. Right?
Or behind?
Sorry?
In front or behind?
I mean, it depends on how you're seeing it. This in front. I don't know what is this in front or is this behind? I guess in front. Is it front? I don't know, but just after you type it, not before you type it. Any questions on how the aliases work? Okay.
Sorry, please can we insert select from accounts, then alias is A.
Sorry?
As against, can you hear me?
Yes, can we what?
Can we insert this column line 8, select from accounts, alias is A. Can we put it in this column line 3 as against the line 8? Can it work like that?
So you're saying you want to put here?
Yes. Is this still the same thing?
Let me see let me be sure of what you want to see. So here,
yes,
select from accounts, and then you list the
You list the columns. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Just think about it like English. You're saying select, give me some. Not say give me from a table and then list it. Is give me whatever you're listening from wherever you're listening.
That table. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Okay. So now we've learned select, from, and then we've learned aliases, right? And so usually we might not want to select every single thing in a table, right? So we've learned that if we want to select different columns, right, we just specify the columns. Or if there are specific rows that I want to select, right? So I want to select only I want to select what now? Only those that their names are Michael, right? That's all I want. It will not make sense. Imagine if this table has 10,000 rows, it has 20,000 rows, 1 million rows. Would I have to always select every single thing and then start looking at it one by one? There'll be no point of writing the SQL. You can also just have it in Excel, right? Now, there are ways to put conditions in our queries when we are doing our data analysis or we're manipulating our database, right? So there's a function called where, right? And it's used to filter. So your where is your standard filtering in SQL, right? And so, if you go to our materials where you have the where function, because I will not be able to use I might not use each and every one of the operators that we have there, but I'll take some examples. So there we have several operators that we use with the where function. And what do I mean by that? Right? I'm saying, let's say now that we want, like that, my example. Okay, more typical example. We want where the account status is 1, right? So we'll say where, as you can see, from the question that was asked yesterday, why I was using caps or whether you must use caps. Right now, I'm not using caps anymore because I think we can understand what the functions are and what the variables are, right? So where account status is equal to 1, right? So I want only the guys that are equal to 1. I want only those ones that have account status equal to 1. And so if I run this now, you see that it gives me a result set that has only where the account status is 1. So I've used the where and I've used the equal to operator, right? I can say where the account status is greater than 1, right? And it gives me the only ones that are 2. Does anybody confused at this stage? Okay. What if I want to have more than one condition, right? So, let's see. Let me see. where first name is equal to Michael. Now, whenever I am using a string in SQL, I have to put it in quotes, right? When I'm calling any string, when I'm trying to use a string as a filter or search for a string or anything like that, I have to put it in quotes. But if I'm using an integer, I don't need to put it in quotes. So if you notice when I was using the account status, I could just write 1, 2, but when I'm doing this for a string, it needs to be in quotes, right? So if we run this now, it will give us a similar output because these are the two Michaels we have. But I want Michael, right? Oh, no, sorry. I want Michael, and I want Michael that has over $100. I don't want a Michael that has only $20. So I can put another condition. So remember we said that we use where to filter out using conditions. So this is the first condition I've written, where first name is equal to Michael, and I want to add another condition, and the balance is greater than 100. Let's see. So see the difference. For the integer, I didn't need to put it in quote. For the string, I needed to put it in quotes. So you see, it gave me Michael Jordan, like we've seen here, because this is the only Michael this is the only row that the name is Michael, and it has a greater than $100 balance. Does that make sense? Is this clear? Do you understand the flow and how this works? Okay, it's like we understand. Please, if you don't understand, stop me, ask me, so that we will all be on the same page. Okay. What if I want to what's the word? If I want to put a condition, so for first name, I don't only want Michael. If I'm putting a condition that has more than one variable, right? So I want those that are Michael, I want those that are John. Do we have any John on our list? Let's see. No John. Oh, we have John. Good. So we want those that are Michael, we want those that are John, we want those that are Logan, right? We can say where the first name is equal to Michael, or the first name is equal to John, or the first name is equal to Logan, right? That's the logical a way to go about it. But that's not very effective, but that's how the all function will work. So let me just also write that out so that we have it. Then we'll go another way. So we're trying to do what?
Excuse me, I noticed that you have to copy everything from the earliest. Before you started writing your VF function again. Does that mean that when we want to write VF function, we cannot do it on its own? We have to start from account number, first name, and all of that.
No, I didn't get that. So you noticed that I copied.
When you copied and started again from select a dot account underscore number and all the way down. before you now start writing the where function again.
Mm.
You know, you want to call this action in a different way just to explain a point. I
Yeah.
was now asking that, do you have to start the, like, no, I'm not.
I don't want to. I want you to still have this in case for those that want to refer to this one. I don't want to just change it in case you just want to run only this. I could have added it here. Is that what you're asking? Like I don't have to always.
Yes, is what I'm asking. Like,
Okay.
I think you're just calling the where function of the name alone, Michael, John. So we have to come along with this syntax that has to do with account number, account first name, last name, account status.
Okay. So you're
Which one do
saying
they have to
that, for
follow?
example, I can just do it like this, or because you need to see something. Whoa, these things are what I say I want to see in my output, right? So what I'm listing at the structure of my output. So I'm saying I want to see the account number, first name, last name, account status, where
Oh, Michael.
Michael, right? So it depends on what you want to see. If you want to see only the account number, you can say, give me account number. Like if that's all that you require, that's still fine. Just give me account number for all of these people. If you say you want to see the only the account number and the balances, like it's not for this part. These are the variables. Variables being, it depends on what your analysis is. It depends on what you are trying to achieve, right? The business question. So for this case right now, we want to see these 4 variables, right?
Thank you.
No problem. Okay. So if we run this, we get our result being John, Michael, Michael Scott, Michael Jordan, and Logan, right? Because we've used the or function. So for the and function, both conditions have to be met, and for the or function, either of the conditions needs to be met. So that's how the and the or work. However, there's an easier way to write this. And so if it's the same column, right? And you want to get multiple condition, you can use the in function, right? So if you use the in operator, you can use it to get a list. However, you need to put them in a bracket. So in Michael, John, Logan. So if I run this now, I'll also get the same. So I don't have to repeat the or first name every single time, right? So if I say where first name in and list out the 3, it gives me the same result. So is there any question on this?
Okay. Sorry, the in. Can you just explain what you said the in is doing?
So the in is working like this or function, right? And so if you look at this, right, for where you have where first name is equal to Michael, or first name is equal to John, or first name is equal to Logan, instead of listing it out 3 different times, we can use in so that we can list the conditions that we want for one column. So in is telling me that where the first name is either of these 3, give it to me in my results. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So another very important
To call you back before you move on. So sorry. Yes, I know you're moving on to the next thing. Just
no
a
problem.
question though.
What?
The data you are using right now,
Mm.
on this account table, I noticed because I was not in classes there, but I've watched it. I noticed that you were about increasing those data manually. And I think something happened that maybe Shekinah posted something on the chat, and then all of a sudden I saw that you've populated like 6 or 7 rows like that. So I just want to know, is there a shortcut to it, or every time you want to um add data on our table, we have to code it, we have to do it manually, and even if we have 1,000 data, I don't know if you understand what I mean. Do we have to
No.
type it one after the other?
Yeah.
Or there was something Shekina sent to you and you just, because I couldn't get that part very well in the video.
No. So there are 3 ways to load data, right? One is to manually create your structure and input the data. Like I mentioned yesterday in class, there will probably be, as a data analyst, you probably not what's the word, ever have to do that. In fact, it's very unlikely that anybody would manually load data into a database, because how data is collected into relational databases are primarily through applications. So when you fill out forms on your phone, or you create transactions on your mobile application, banking, or you shop on a retail store online, that's how data is inputted into the database, right? So the use case for creating a database using the insert, or ever creating a database and imputing your data into the database, is minimal. However, for our practice, we needed to learn the basics of how to create a database, which is why we use a small table that has just 14 rows. Now, for our transaction table, we imported it. That's another method. We talked about 3 methods. Another method. And so we imported a CSV file. So if you have a file or a CSV or Excel file that has maybe 10,000, 20,000, a million rows, and you want to import that into a database, you don't have to do it manually. You can simply import it using your table data import wizard. On several relational database bases, you have different ways, but basically on every single one of them, you'll be able to import data from a CSV file or Excel file into your database. So you don't have to always do that. In the class yesterday, we actually ran our code and imported it. And then for the second one, for the transactions one, we imported it using a CSV file. So if you've not done yours,
this running of code, yeah, I've worked with. I understood the transaction. I've even downloaded it. I've imported it rather.
okay.
But the mention of running a code, dealing by using the insert function. So you use the insert function for the 14, or was there a code? That's the part I really want to get.
This is it. This is
one. Yes.
Yeah.
When did you get this? That's what I'm saying. Did you type this yesterday, or you got it from somewhere?
Yeah, I already had it typed, so I sent it on the group for everyone to.
Okay, so people like us that watch the video, we couldn't get it.
Oh, I see what you mean now. Sorry. Okay.
Kindly, I don't know if you can help me. Thank you.
But have you created your table structure for your accounts?
I've done that.
Okay, then you can run this, and then it should be fine. Oh, one minute, just hold on. Just after you run that, run this as well, or you can simply correct it manually, just so that you have the correct data, because we learned how to update the name. There's the wrong name here. So you can simply correct it. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't getting your question earlier.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've learned in function, where, from, select, right? Now, the next thing we're going to learn is another operator called like, right? So I'm going to make this. I'll send this code when we are done with the class, right?
Okay, sorry for taking you back. I put a question in the chat, but I just said let me say it out loud. Each time I do the select from account, my table shows, but the moment I want to do an update or like what we are doing on the screen, the table disappears. So I don't get to see any filtered results.
The table, so you don't see like a table like this one?
So once I select from accounts, it brings out a table. But the moment I move past it and like run another code like what we're doing on the screen, the table does not show.
What do you don't see anything at all?
The table does not come up. It just tells me it is run, like it was successful, but I don't see a filtered result.
Yeah, because you're not meant to always be seeing the table. You only see the table when you do a select statement. So if you don't select it again, you're not going to see it. And by the way, you don't have to keep seeing the table. If you want to see the table, you have to select. You have to run like
when she runs like a select. Don't you mean when you run one of these?
When she does update.
Yeah. So for example, if I clicked on the select the account number, last name, and all of that. I'm not seeing it on it, like just to show what I did. Like I just want to see the result on the table, and it's not coming up. The only time the table comes up is when I click select from account, that first line of code, and then it brings up the table.
You know what? Just post the code that you're using in the chat. I'll answer it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to the like function, right? And the use cases for like. When do we use like? The like function is used alongside with wildcards, right? So if I'm trying to look for like a pattern, so let's assume that I want to check my database for any account that is owned by a school, and then my business team says when we register schools accounts, we add it to their names, right? So it's either in the first name or in their last name. And so there's no way for me, there's no like standard pattern. There's no way for me to know whether the school's name is in the first name or it's in the last name. So the way to go about something like that would be to say select. This time around, let's say we just want to lay first name. So I say where first name. Now, this is what we're trying to do, right? So like I said, we use the like operator, all right, or the like function.
You're spelling for where? That's where the error is.
Oh, sorry. We use the like function with wildcard, right? And in SQL, you have the percentage sign as your wildcard. Now, your percentage sign says that anything before, like, how do I say this now? So let me say, I'm seeing where the first name, like this school, right? So if I have, say, technical high school, right? Anything that is provided there is anything before school, there is school somewhere in between, right? So provided there's school somewhere in between, the name is going to produce that as my result, right? So let's run this first, then you have a so it returns this as well as my result, because I have one that says school of the deaf, right? So there's anything before school or anything after school, I'm saying that you should, like, I want that as my result, right? If I do this, it's not going to produce anything because I'm only putting the wildcard before the school, right? So it's only if I had something like, say, like technical high school, then that will come out, right? But if I put it here, this will also produce a result. So if you are sure for the position of what you're searching for, so for example, I want to look for everything that ends in N, right? All the first names that end in N. So I can do this. And it's going to give me all the first names that end in N. Because I'm sure if I want to put only those that contain N, whether at the beginning or at the end or in the middle, I'll put the wildcard in between, right? So it's going to give me all those, as you can see, Andrew, Richmond, have N somewhere in it, right? Okay. So now we said first name like school, right? And I'm saying, oh, last name like school. So we have our two results, right? Is the like and how to use the wildcards, is that clear? Does it make sense? Ask me any questions if this is not clear. Okay. Now, there's something we call aggregate functions. So let's switch to, well, we can still use this one. So it's something we call aggregate functions. For the aggregate functions, we use them, well, we can use them in our select statement and we can use them in our where clause, right? So this part of the query is the select statement, right? So where you are outlining what you are looking for, what is going to be in your output in terms of the view. And then your where clause is from here, that is the filtering or the condition that you are setting for your select statement, right? Okay, so you can put your aggregate, you can have your aggregate function in both your select statement and in your where clause. So for example, if I want to maybe get the, let me do this. Okay, so let's use this. So if I want to sum the transaction amount, right? Okay, Shekinah, please, could you help me answer in the chat?
Yeah, will do.
Okay. So if I want to get the sum of the transaction amount, right? And okay, let's just start from here. I want to do this. You see, that's giving me the sum of all the transactions that we have on our transaction table, right? I can give this also an alias. So if I say sum transaction amount, and I want to call it total amount. Note that if we want if we're renaming a column, right, in SQL, you cannot put a space like this. It doesn't work, right? If you want to put a space between the names, you have to put it in quotes. Exactly. Like what I just did now, does it make sense? If you didn't get that, let me repeat it. I repeat it one more time. When you're renaming your column in SQL, you either put it as one word, right? Which is the typical thing you see most people do. If you need to make it 2 words, it's going to throw an error, except you put it in quotes. So if I run this now, same thing, but you see that my output now has a proper name, which is total amount, right? Now, what if I want to sum the transaction amount, but I want to sum it by the account number? So for each account number, if we look at our transactions table, for example, let's do this. Okay, I'll take this. So if we check our transactions table, right, you see that, let's even just do some quick observation of this table. We see that what we have here, we have an account number, we have the transaction date. So you see the account number, the date the transaction happened, whether it was a credit or it was a debit transaction, the transaction amount. Would also have like a reversal flag. Was this a reversal, or was it not a reversal? And then the transaction status, right? So transaction status could mean anything. In this case, maybe one means failed, 0 means approved or successful, and 2 maybe is pending, right?
Isabel, sorry, 1 second. I think some people are saying you should retake this part.
Yeah, that's what I'm starting again.
If you have a question on like something that like has to do with what they're teaching now, just feel free to like unmute and say something, right? The chat is just to help like other questions. Sorry, go ahead.
No problem. So let's explore the data sets before we go back to what we're doing, so that it makes more sense actually. So we see that each account number has a transaction date. So the date to this account number 1009 did the transaction on 23rd of January to the credit transaction, and it was he received $15.3. There was no reversal, and it was maybe one. Let's say one is successful, right? It was successful. So, as you can see, 1009 has multiple transactions. He has some transaction here, he has some transaction, he has 2 here. 1001 has this debit transaction, has this credit transaction. And so depending on the date of the transaction, depending on so many other things, you have multiple transactions per account number, right? So back to what we did earlier. Okay, I just realized now that I'm assuming you want me to go back to the aggregate function. Is it the aggregate function you want me to go back to, or the
Yes, the aggregate something.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to be sure. Okay, so now if we want to have to take a sum, right? We want to have a summation of all the transaction amounts on our transaction table. We can say select sum and then transaction amount. That is the syntax to get the sum, right? From the transaction table. And if we run this, we'll get an answer, which is $1,580.2 right? Now, what if we want to rename this? In other words, I say, I don't want it to give me this function as the header. So you see, total. Remember what we said about aliases. So for aliases, it's not only the table that you can keep aliases. You can also give an alias or rename your column, right? By simply putting the name after it. If I come here now, let me even just show you one quick thing. If I come here and I put this, let's assume I have this, right? So I select account number and I write first name here. I don't put a comma between the account number and first name. It's going to rename my account number as first name. Let me show you. It's going to call the account number first name. Just to answer the question of the other person who said, is it just to simply put it behind it? So once you simply put it without a comma, it's going to assume that you're renaming it or you're giving it that alias, right? Okay. So we have select, we're summing the transaction amount, or we're calling it total amount from the transactions table, right? And if we run this now, you see that this has been renamed. Now, what I said earlier was when you are renaming a column in SQL, you cannot put a space between the names. If you do that, it's going to throw an error. The only way to put a space, if you want to put a space here, say for your output, you want it to be clean, you don't want to have underscores, is to add quotes in between them. So if you add quotes in between them, then that will work. That will fly. And so you have this total amount without it. So is everybody good up to this point? And does this make sense? Okay, I'll take the silence as a yes. Okay. Now, what if, okay, so back to our table, our transaction table. We can say that getting the total transaction from everything, it might not make sense to us because, we have both debit and credit transactions, right? So what if I want to see, I want to know which one is debit, I want to know which one is credit, right? So we have a column called transaction type. I think it's called is it trans or tran type? Let's do this. Let's call this guy T. So it's called trans type. Okay. So if I say select this and trans type from transactions, if I run this, it's going to give me an error because I'm giving an aggregated function and then I'm trying to also get the transaction type. It cannot make sense to the computer. So it's going to throw me an error. And it says in aggregated query, right, without group by expression number 2 of select list contains non-aggregated column, which is this one, right? Okay. So I'm going to introduce another function, which is called group by. And so we want to select this, the total amount, and the transaction type, and we want to group it by the transaction type. So the only way to select an extra column when you create an aggregate in SQL is to group by that other column. You can do without selecting this and put it in the group by space, but you cannot have the vice versa, right? You can't have the vice versa. So if you run this, you see now that it has given me, oops, there's an error in our table. We'll have to make that correction. So, so this is not going to give us a correct figure anyway, because when we run this, so we have 1005. And we have a debit. Okay. I'm going to give us, so who can we guess? Can somebody guess how we can fix this based on what we've done?
Update.
Right, update. Okay, and what will be the condition that we use for update?
Where account number equals 1.
So I'll try and check something. So you see now that 1005, but if we try to update this table now and say where account number is 1005 alone, then it's going to update these 3 columns to the correct spelling of debit, which we don't want, right? Thankfully, we have just one where we have debit. So what we're going to do is trans type. Okay, right. So okay, so let's all do this now, just this part. We don't need here. Let's all write this together so that we can update our table, right? So we want to update transactions and set the trans type to debit, where the account number is 1005 and the trans type is debit with an extra T. So when you do that, you should see a check sign saying 1 row affected, and then hopefully now when we run this other query with the group by function, we have only 2. debit and credit. Does anybody have any questions? We will take a quick break now. If there are no questions, or if you get questions, we'll just quickly address it before our break. Does anybody have any questions, concerns? And we'll take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, I'll just stay back during the break for anyone that has any issues from the chat still. You can ask.
Okay. Okay. So have we updated our table and run the first aggregated column of aggregated query, sorry. Yes, no, maybe.
Working on it.
Yeah, you can do without specifying the account number.
Okay, so I tried it and it was giving an error.
No, you can't. You should be able to do, because we already changed it anyway. The idea is when you're trying to update, right? If I say update transaction, set trans type to debit, this will run. But what will happen is that it's going to set all the trans types to debit.
Yeah, I get that. When you now specify where trans type is debit with double T, as opposed to saying where account number is that and trans type is that. How would you run if you say select that from transaction, set transaction type equals to debit to the correct debit, where transaction type equals the wrong debit? Does that work?
Yes.
I tried that, it didn't work.
If you tried it after you've already tried this one, then there will be no place again that has it.
No, I didn't query. I just tried it. I totally took out the account number and I replaced it with transaction type because debit with double T. And it threw me an error.
What's the error?
Yes, I had the same error as well.
Yeah, it says the error 1175. You are using safe update mode and you try to update a table without a where that uses a key column.
Right. That has to just do with your settings. I think it's
What's the error code again? Sorry.
He said they're using
1175.
Okay, read it out again.
Error code 1175. You are using safe update mode and you try to update a table without a where that uses a key column. What does safe update mode mean?
So it's a setting on the workbench. I don't know exactly where to go and change that setting right now. But if we I think we had this in the last class and we tried to change it. So because you're using just the transaction type, which is not a constraint, right? And then the safe update mode is sort of like a check for you. It's going to throw that error. However, if you run this without that safe update mode, it will still only update the line where you have this error, right? The line where you have this error. So if, for example, you are not in this setting, you're using a database that doesn't have all those restrictions, and you realize that there are some transaction types that have this error, right? And you want to change all the transaction types that have this error. You don't want to do it for only one account. Then you would not need to put where account number is and put all the account numbers. You can simply run this straight, and then it will give you the same result, right? Because the idea of your update is that you're trying to only update where it needs to be updated. That's why you're putting that way. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Okay.
So it's updated now, though.
What?
So is it updated now? Sorry. The double T debit, is it updated now? Like
For me or ID?
Oh, it's updated. Yeah, it's updated. You ran. It went through.
all right.
Okay. So are we all good? Okay. So you're fine. Okay, that's good. Okay, so we are at what time now? Let me see. So we have, if we go to our okay, there's one last thing, and so I'm sorry, before we go to our practice. So now we've learned the group by, and we see how group by works, right? So with the group by, we're literally grouping by the transaction type. We're saying sum everything for debit separately and sum everything for credit separately, right? In their groups. So that's literally what the group by is. Now, if I let me do another. Let's say I want to check for, instead of transaction types, I want to group by the account number, right? So I can say select some transaction amount, right? And then put here T dot account number. I want to group by the account number. But this time, I want only account numbers that have a total sum of over, let's say, $100, right? And so I cannot use the where clause for this, because how do I put this? You cannot use an aggregate function with a where clause. If you want to use an aggregate function to filter, you have to use having. So I'm introducing another function now, right? And your having comes after your group by. So we say having from right? So let's look at this syntax together, right? So I'm saying select. We've learned how to use an aggregated function. So sum is just one type of aggregated function. There are different types. You have sum, you have divide, you have max, you have average. There are several aggregated functions. I'll share that with the class, right? I'll share that with the class. And then if you also check your material or the slides, there are a few that are listed there as well. And then we place a comma with the account number. We want the account number, and we want it from the transaction tables. We've said that if you put an aggregated function and a non-aggregated column, you need to group by that non-aggregated column, right? Which is your account number. And then we're saying to be able to filter using the aggregation that you just did, you cannot use a where clause, you have to use having, and your having comes after your group by, right? So if I run this now, if I run this, it's going to give me all the account numbers that have the sum of their transaction amount, which is their total amount, greater than 100. If I say I want the ones that are greater than, let's say 50, we'll have a different result, right? We have more that are greater than 50, right? Now, I only want let's say I only want credit transactions, right? So I just want to show you how the syntax works.
Sorry, Maitabel, please. I just want to suggest, as you're going like this, can you be, I don't know, you're adding everything, you're cleaning, you're typing on top. So it's making it, yes. So if the way you used to copy and paste before, I think it's better. So we can be catching up.
Sorry. I understand. I what's it called? I got distracted. I was doing that so that you could always refer back to the code. Okay. So here, so instead of this, if I want to only get the sum of credit transactions, I can add the condition here for where transaction type, right, is equal to credit. So what I'm doing here is I'm summing transaction amount and the account number from the transactions table where the transaction type is credit, so only credit transaction, and I'm grouping by the account number. So if I run this first, I get everything. And then I want only those that their transaction amount, right, that the credit transaction amount now in this case. So here I'll call this total credit amount, right? So this is total credit amount. And where that total credit amount is greater than $50. If I run this now, I have a different result set, right? Any questions on this one? Then before we move to our practice questions. So we have a few practice questions that we will go through, and then maybe if we have some time, we can introduce the concept of joins.
I have a question.
Okay.
So you're running this query and you're creating an alias for transaction called T. Mm-hmm. But when you're grouping it, you're not grouping it by the alias.
We should group by the alias. It is best practice to always use your alias. It's running now without any error because I'm dealing with only one table, right? If I had multiple tables here and there were some tables that had the same transaction type in two different tables, then it's going to get confused. Which of the transaction types are you talking about? Is it the ones from transaction table? Is it the one from whatever other table I have? But because we are using only one table right now, it's easy to know for the query to know that, okay, there's only one trans type column. But best practice, you should use your alias every time you are referring to the column in whatever table. So,
okay, you mentioned that you can use where in aggregates something, but this where that you put here, is this still not part of this aggregate function, or is it? I don't, just explain, please.
Okay, so you cannot use where to filter using an aggregate function. That is, you cannot say where some this is like, for example, this. You can't do this. You know what? Let me not mess this up. So if you have this, say so you want, remember what we did here, where we wanted only those that the sum of their transactions greater than 50. So you cannot use the where clause to do that, right? So if I run this, it's going to throw an error, invalid use of group function, right? However, our where here is just working like our normal where we're filtering out the transaction type for only credit. So I'm saying I want, give me the total credit amount that I've calculated here, the account number from transactions where the transaction type is credit. So here now, I have my select query, I have my where filter, right? And then because of my aggregation here, I need to put my group by. After I've done this group by, right, then I can use the having clause to filter out whatever I want to filter out from the aggregation. When it's going step by step, right? It's going to start from here and it's going step by step. And there's a sequence of events that it would follow when it is creating, running this query and this code. Shekinah, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, like in practice, think about it this way, right? Imagine you had a table of 3 customers or a couple of customers, and you want to know how much credit transactions do all my customers have in the past month, right? So, there's debit and credit transactions. You want only the credit transactions, and you want the sum over the last month. So what Mahitaba has been explaining will be the upper part of this query. So you're saying select sum of transactions, right, where the transaction is credit. So in other words, this is saying everybody's sum. So let's say person A sum is 50, person A's sum is 25, person C's sum is 100. Now you want to pick out only those whose sum of their transactions is above 50. You want only the high credit transaction people. So now you want to filter on a sum. So you're filtering on an aggregate. So the where can only filter at row level. But when you want to filter on an aggregation that has already been done, so you're saying of people's sum of all their transactions for the past month, you want those that their transactions are above 50. The sum of those transactions, all their credit transactions above 50. So that's where your having now comes in. If you run the code from this select only up to group by, you just have the sum of only credit transactions for everybody. So each person's sum, all their credit transactions summed into one row. Then now, if you want only the rows for which the sums are greater than 50, you now use having. So you cannot now use where again. So when you want to filter on the aggregate already done, you use having, but where gives you filter at row level.
Is that does that help?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's go to our practice questions. There are 5 of them. Let's see how fast we can go. So I'm going to type the questions here, right? I don't know how many people have their stuff opened. So the first question is, what is the sum and number of credit transactions of customers on the 25th?
I already pasted in the chat.
Okay, to 27 of January. Okay, so the first question is, what is the sum and number of credit transactions of customers on the 25th to 27th of January, right? I I'm going to do this one with us. And then for the second, third, fourth, and fifth ones, we'll try it ourselves, right? But here we'll all do it together at the end of the day. But yeah, we'll try it. But this first one, I'm going to do it because I'm going to use it to teach the how to get number, which is also very, very, I'm sure most of us can do it already just by looking at it. Okay, so what is the sum and number of credit transactions? Very similar to what we did earlier. So we want to say select some transaction, trans amount. I want to call it what? Credit. Hope like typing as I'm typing as well. So we're saying the transaction amount as total credit transaction count, the account numbers. So I'll call this number of credits, right? From transactions. Where transaction type is equal to credit, right? And remember, we have two conditions. So the first condition is what? The first condition is the credit, right? So when you have this kind of equation, for example, you ask yourself, what exactly do I need? What is being looked for, right? So let's say you are in the bank or you're in a lending facility, and then someone comes and says, oh, I want to see, or somebody from the business or the executives, they want to see the sum and then the number of credit transactions for the customer for a particular period. Let's assume there was a promotion in between 25th to 27th, and so they want to see the impact, right? So the first thing is to check what is being looked for. We know that at the end of the day, what our output should have the total credit transaction, the number of credit transactions, right? And so we've done that. The next part is to know our filters. The first filter is that we want only credit transactions. And so I've said where trans type is credit. What is the second filter from what we have here? Anybody? What's the second condition? First condition is that it should be credit transaction. What is the second condition? Transaction date. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. So the trans date. Now, there's another, we can say where the trans date is, let's say, greater than or equal to 2020 01 25, right? And trans right? So this is going to give us between these two dates. Another way we can write this would be right. So let's run it and see what I will get. Same thing. So this tells us that we had a total credit transaction of $323.6, and we had 8 credit transactions. And we can also run this using this, which will give us the same thing, right? So these are 2 methods for filtering using dates, right? So you can use between, you can say it's greater than or equal to this date and less than or equal to this date. It gives you the interval. Now, what if they had asked us for the sum of transaction and number of customers, right? Not number of credit transactions, just number of customers. So sum of credit transactions and number of customers, or not sum and number of customers, so sum of transaction amount, sorry, and number of customers. So let me write that out just so that I can send this. So sum of transaction amounts and number of customers that did credit transaction, right, between these dates. So very similar query, and I'm just going to show you what the difference will be. But here, we're going to count.
Then the count unique. Or count
Yes.
is okay.
So we're going to count the distinct account numbers because we could have multiple transactions by one account, right? So that's the difference. Just so same credit transaction, but for the number of customers. So here we'll say number of customers, right? Okay, so let me see what's the second one. Can we try to do the second one to list the account numbers, first and last name, and balance of all accounts that are active or pending? So active active is 1 and pending is 0, right? So can we write that, and then I would just give us some time to write it, and let me know if anybody's having any issues. And I will also at the end of the day write out the query.
Let's just make sure everyone understands the sequence of the code, the logic, right? Not just typing along. So if you don't understand, if you cannot answer questions 2 to 5, then we may have to revisit something. So make sure you try the other ones.
Please try your hands on it and tell me.
I have a question before we proceed. So how you stated count distinct, the thing comes in the bracket where the account number is.
Yeah. So
why does it, do you mind explaining why it works that way? What if it's outside of that bracket where account number is?
One thing I always like to do in my classes is when we ask the questions. We'll try we'll try it just so that we can see. I already see that there's thrown an error.
Some things are just the syntax, right? Like you don't need to know why the way it is.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's just the
But
syntax.
it gets confusing because the first count is like what, an aggregate, right? And I suppose two is something similar. So if the first one is outside of the bracket and the other one is in the bracket, what happens if you have a third one?
Because distinct is not really an aggregate. It's
So
more like just count the unique ones. It's not aggregating them.
So let me show you something. Let me do something for you. If we say select star from transactions, so if I want to say so, although you can do this, right? Oh, it doesn't even with account number in transaction. Oh, don't we have account number? Oh, I didn't spell this right. So although we can do this, right? We can also do this. So just see that for distinct is quite different, right? The syntax for distinct is very different. You can do this, but you can never do this. It's going to give you error. You always have to put this in brackets.
That's where it gets confusing. All right, no problem. It's the syntax. Just have to learn it.
If you do this like this, right? If you do this, it will work. You get this. So do you see the difference? So with distinct, you don't have to put it, but you can do that. But with the sum, whatever it is you're summing, you need it to be in the bracket. And what you're summing is the distinct account number. Am I spelling this right? This thing. I'm just giving some time for other people to also finish number 2. I hope.
Oh, I was clarifying.
So yeah, I hope that makes sense. But yeah, just understand the syntax that you can do this. You can also have the distinct in brackets, but it has to also be inside the other bracket for the sum. So you can have your distinct with the bracket here. You don't have to put it in bracket, but you can, just so you don't get confused.
Is everyone doing number 2? Like we have to try and do all exercises tonight, or at least before next class, and ourselves.
Okay, so yeah. So for number 2, how many records do we have? You can just drop it in the chat. How many records do you have from your output if you've run it? Has anybody given it a try? Anybody that's given it a try, you can speak up or you can put it in the chat. I really wish somebody has tried it because the way there's no communication. That would,
They will try it. They will try it. I trust my class. Let's just give it a bit of time. And if you're running into any errors or difficulties, like I'm in the chat to help, like with the number 2 question. Like everyone should run it.
Sorry, are the questions in the chat?
Yes.
Okay.
I have also pasted it here. Yes. Okay, got 12. Anybody else? How many rows did you get? So we're expecting a list, right? A list of first and last name.
So yeah, this. Do you want us to like send the screenshots?
No. Just tell me how many rows you have.
Okay. All right. So yeah, it was 12.
Okay.
So I'll try the others as well.
Okay. I'm going to drop the query for number 2 here. Does everybody understand how we're getting 12? Anybody that doesn't understand how we're getting 12, you can you just speak up and let me know?
It would be good if more people did some that need to catch up, okay, but everyone that has followed today, like, make sure you do it.
Okay, so I'll just write this. Numbers.
So it's just one person that did number 2?
2 people have said they got 12.
I've said 12? Okay. I would recommend not doing all in class. Maybe 3 to 5 or 4 and 5 should be a take-home homework for the next class. Just so everyone gets to do it themselves. Because if you don't write the code yourself, trust me, you don't know it. Even if you followed in class, you won't be able to reproduce it, especially when it's a different question, right? Or a different database.
Yeah. So those of us that got 12, you can also compare your queries with this. Just to be sure that okay. Is anybody done with number 3? We'll stop with number 3 and then number 4 and 5 will have that as take home to work on. Is anybody that's completely lost, like you don't even know what's going on and you're not following, it's not making any sense? Can you let me know so that we know? If you have to stay back after the class just for some sort of catch up, is there anybody that is completely lost? Or at least are we going to be able to catch up with the recording and if you follow through with the code? There's anybody like that is completely lost, just please indicate. Let us know. Okay, good work.
Do people not like talking in class? I'm just curious.
I don't know. Such a quiet class. Okay. Feel free to unmute and speak. It is supposed to be an interactive class, a very interactive class. So anybody done with number 3 or trying out number 3? Are you trying out number 3? Let me know if you're working on it, if you're trying it out, if there's any challenge. There's no challenge. You are just typing your code. Nobody?
I'm trying it out. So I'm just the last part for overdraft. I'm trying to use the overdraft field, but I'm trying to figure out what should be there. Aside sorting with percentage for school, the wildcard. So I'm still trying it out.
Okay.
Are you getting an error or?
No, I'm still trying to figure out the second because it's two-way. It says the school can overdraft. So I'm just still thinking. No errors yet.
Okay.
Anybody else? Is there anybody else that
having issues with my syntax number 2 and it's just driving me nuts?
Sorry?
But I'm still having issues with my syntax for number 2. I'm gonna get there.
You can paste the code that you're using on the chat and then we can see where the error is. Or you can look at the one on the on my screen and compare with yours to see where you made an error.
Something like, oh,
sorry?
Okay, yeah. That's why I missed it.
Okay. Yeah, so it's good to like at least make a try on your own, and then if it's giving you an error, you can check it out with the ones that we do in the class, and then that's why I'm finding it. I don't really want to share the query with us because I feel we will not try it out on our own again. You'll just be reading through this one or copying and paste. So it's better you actually do it on your own. And then if you have any issue, then you can refer to this, right? Refer to this. Okay, so we have only 5 minutes. So I'll quickly do number 3, right? And then those of us that are trying it, we can also check it to see where,
I think I got something. It's 2.
Okay.
Just 2 rows.
Let's try it. we want to select all accounts. Sorry.
Keep getting an error in my syntax. I don't know what's wrong.
You
Try
want
to
to
look.
put a screenshot in the chat.
Yeah, yes, put it in the.
Oh, you put the code in the chat?
Yes, put it in the chat.
Okay.
Okay. So we have
Is this for number 2 or number?
number 2.
Okay.
That's for number 2. I'm gonna try number 2.
Okay, sorry, I was distracted. Mm.
Hi, Maisabel. Sorry, I have a question.
Mhm. Yeah.
So this number, okay, there was when you were explaining earlier, there was a time you used all. So I want to ask, if you use where account status equals 1 or where account status equals 0, is it the same thing?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm trying that and it's not working. All right, thanks for that.
But it's not an effective way to write your query, to put where account status equals 1 or account. So you will not say where account status equals 1 or where you put it only once. So you say where account status equals 1 or account status equals 0. Does that make sense?
Yes, that was actually what I did, but it didn't work.
You can drop that. Yeah.
Oh.
Hmm.
Okay. So I can't remember who mentioned that you're having issues with this. So you see that this would run, right? If you use the or if you use the in, right? So this also ran. So check your query to be sure that everything is correct. Okay. 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 It seems like you didn't spell the status properly, right? Cynthia. Okay. Okay. So we would end here today, but I just want to use this opportunity to introduce one new, or just to touch on one new concept. There are so many functions in SQL that we will probably not cover in the class, right? There are so many operators and functions, but I'm just going to use as many as possible during our practice and point them out. And at the end of the class, I will send a list, like a SQL cheat sheet, sort of, that has all the functions. So you have some date functions, you have some number functions, aggregated functions, and some other things you can refer to while you are working with SQL, wherever. You can always refer back there in case you need to walk around anything. Now, if you notice, I put lower here. This lower, when you do this, it makes everything in this column to be lowercase. And if I put upper, it will make everything here to be uppercase. You use this in situations where your database is case sensitive. So for example, let's assume that for this query, the school in Richmond School starts with a small letter S, and here has a big letter S. And you're unable to identify which is which, right? A way to go about it is to convert every single thing in the first name to be small letters, and then before you add your wildcard and then make it all small letters, right? So this lower here means that I'm making everything in these columns small letters, right? So yeah, that's number 3. Let me see, by this weekend, by Saturday or by the end of tomorrow, we will drop the code for number 4, number 5 as well on the Slack channel. But before then, please try it out. Try to do it on your own. Try to make mistakes and see where, just try it out, right? I'm sure you'll be able to get it. You'll be able to make mistakes. But even if you make mistakes, it's fine. We'll drop the code and then you can compare, right? So number 4 and number 5 will be our homework, will be our take home. And then next class, we'll start with joins. So that's where we'll start relating tables together. Again, it is already in the file, the document that was shared. And so we can already go over it, try to understand the concept of joins, try to understand how it works, right? There's some, there's a few Venn diagrams there to aid our understanding of how joins work. Let's try to go over it and see how that works, so that when we start the class next week, we already all have an idea, and it's just the coding parts that we'll look at. Okay, so distinct. You said what distinct is to basically get unique values. So for example, in our transactions table, we have multiple values, multiple transactions per account number, per customer. And so if I want to see just how many customers are in that account, in that list of account, like the account numbers, right? I don't want to just count the number of records. I want to actually know how many customers. I can use a distinct function to be able to remove duplicates and count only the unique values. So distinct is just giving you the distinct number, the unique number. Is that clear? Does that help make sense to you? Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, please. I overheard somebody saying the data, that transaction file on Slack is not correct. Is that true?
Transaction file that what?
That's the one I downloaded. Transaction file that we used to do the table, the transaction table. I downloaded the one from the Slack group. But somebody was chatting in the group that can somebody send the file again, that the one you downloaded is not correct. So I'm just wondering if I should just go by the transaction file sent on the group chat so that I can get it before we close now.
Yes. Please go. If the transaction table that you have does not have account number, first name, account number, transaction date, trans amount, then that is not the one that we're using for this practice. And please, by next class, we will be joining two tables together, so it has to be the correct one, actually. Right.
Okay, thank you.
So you can just get it from, I think that one is transaction, and this one is transactions. The transaction table should please look like this for this class, for the classwork. Okay. Any other questions?